Hey, it's Noah from Tested.com. We're here at GDC 2014 in San Francisco. Once again, meeting with Oculus. Nate Mitchell, VP of Product at Oculus. You guys have new hardware to announce.
We do.
Oh my goodness, it's Development Kit 2.
Yes.
The second piece of hardware that people can pre-order.
Pre-order today.
Pre-order today.
Absolutely.
So we saw you guys at CES. You guys are demoing a prototype you called Crystal Cove.
Yep.
And a lot of that hardware is making its way into DK2. Let's give people a refresher of what was in Crystal Cove and how that's transitioned over in the few months since.
In Crystal Cove and in the second development kit, we have the new key features are really positional tracking and low persistence. So positional tracking allows you to move in 6 degrees of freedom, much more naturally.
Translation movement forward,
lean forward, lean back, tilt around corners, that sort of thing. Low persistence display. It's a low persistence OLED display, so it is same resolution as Crystal Cove, but higher resolution than the original dev kit.
Which is the resolution is
of
DK2.
Development Kit 2 is 1920 by 1080.
It's a 1920 by 1080.
Yes.
5-inch display.
Roughly
5-inch display.
Yep.
And you're confirming AMOLED.
Yes.
With a pentile matrix.
Yes.
Likely. You guys had talked about this with the Reddit
and
guys.
you helped, yeah.
So that stuff from Crystal Cove.
Yeah.
Now I noticed there's no IR LEDs visible.
Right.
In the front, like we had those dots.
Yes.
In the CES version.
So the IR LEDs are still in there. They're actually embedded in the headset. The camera can still track them through the plastic here. So we've hidden them. It looks a bit more pro, and it's a big improvement.
So how has DK2 changed from Crystal Cove? I know positional tracking was in both, is in this one, but is the range of movement wider?
So for the most part, the range of movement is wider, but it's not so much the hardware changes as it is software. So we've really been working on sensor fusion, the tracking, vision tracking, our filtering system to really make for a much better experience and to track your movements again more accurately, more precisely, lower latency in a wider range. So that's something that's pretty exciting about DK2 is that as it improves, really, we're going to be rolling those changes out constantly to into the SDK and to developers. So developers will see the progress very quickly as we go.
So it's something that if they pre-order this, developers pre-order this,
yes,
and they get it, and you guys are aiming to ship in July-ish time frame,
yes,
they will see improvements up until consumer release.
Absolutely. And this, Development Kit 2 really has all of the building blocks that are really necessary for great VR. They're not quite there yet, right? The consumer version is going to be another step forward, but it is a major leap from the original dev kit. And with positional tracking, low persistence, developers can do some pretty creative stuff that they weren't able to do before.
Michael Abrash at Valve at the Dev Days, did a big talk about presence.
Yes.
And you guys really adopted the idea of presence. You don't think DK2 delivers that level of presence yet?
Not the level of presence that Michael Abrash is talking about. So there are still, its own shortcomings, right? We know what the threshold looks like for presence. And Michael Abrash talked about it in slides, and it's 90 hertz, low persistence with great positional tracking and all these things. We're not quite there with the second development
Can we talk about, you said 90 hertz, this is 75 hertz.
Yes,
which is
exactly.
close.
We're getting closer.
And you think that by the time, technology will get to a point where you can get to 90 hertz?
We have big plans for the consumer version. We're locking down the spec right now. And people that are working with the Development Kit 2 will be helping us again, just like we did with the original dev kit. We really do believe the consumer version of the Rift will deliver a higher level of both presence and comfort that really, blows people away.
So in terms of comfort, it's still this head-mounted harness.
Yeah.
You consolidated the cables a little bit.
One single cable. We've gotten rid of the breakout box, so it's actually just powered over USB and then just HDMI port.
And you guys are making your own cameras.
We are making our own cameras. It's the same sensor that we used in Crystal Cove.
Can you give any details about the sensor?
I can't.
Okay, but it's going to be a proprietary camera. People can't use their own cameras?
Yes. So the camera is designed just like everything else for VR. We've very carefully selected our sensor and tuned the tracking algorithms to be for a particular range and a particular size. So you can't just use your webcam to track the Rift. It just won't work.
People who've worn DK1, which you can call DK1 now, aside from the experiential differences, the physical differences, is this lighter? Is it heavier?
So it's slightly heavier. I think it's about 40 to 50 grams heavier. We wanted to go the opposite direction, but we slipped a little bit and got a little bit heavier.
It doesn't protrude as much as Crystal Cove, because that was a prototype. You had a lot of empty space.
Exactly.
What about the weight distribution? Are you guys looking at putting
weight distribution is a little bit better. I mean, the cable is significantly lighter. It's significantly less sort of stressful. And overall, one of the main things we want to improve for the consumer version is the ergonomics, right? So aside from just overall experience, software tracking, those things, we do want to get it lighter, smaller, and we can do that. We have prototypes in the office that already show that that's possible.
Now,
so.
I've also noticed there's a USB port and what looks like some type of analog port here.
Yes.
What are these for?
So it's a development kit. We wanted to have a little fun. We decided we'd add a USB hub to the headset for people to attach accessories. So we're seeing a lot of videos online of people doing creative things with the Rift. We wanted to facilitate that a little bit more in the developer.
Can you give an example of what type of accessory you might be able to
people have strapped leap motions to the front. They've strapped cameras to the front. With the USB port on the device, they can actually just mount it to the headset and do some really creative things. This port here is actually power for the USB.
Got it.
So because the Rift is now powered over USB, if you plug in a device that's also powered over USB, that might blow open the USB spec. So you potentially need another power supply to power like a very high-res camera or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of other accessories, now at CS we talked about like Sixth Sense has their system. There's the treadmill system, and those companies have had to adapt to your announcement that Oculus is going to be more sitting experience. Have you guys had more talks with them or putting them in consideration? Like how's that going to work?
So we're always talking to pretty much everyone in the industry. There's tons of people doing VR controllers and things like that. We are still targeting a seated experience. That probably won't change for consumer V1. We've said before, we want to nail that first before we get you standing up, blindfolded, running around your apartment. Right. So we're going to really focus on seated to begin with, and then see where we go from there.
And the demo you guys were showing here, the new demo tech demo that you've worked with Epic, is crazy because you see your virtual body sitting on a couch.
Yeah.
And that really made me feel really weird. Like you have this out-of-body experience. You can see this controller.
It's that taste of presence, right?
Yeah.
It's like almost you're in this other space. Yeah, so we developed Couch Nights. It's a tech demo using UE4. We worked on it with the team at Epic. They did the majority of the work. Great team there. It's a two-player experience. You actually see the other player's avatar moving through space. So it has a bit of that positional tracking. And then we really wanted to have fun with sort of juxtaposing like fantasy and reality. So you're in this room that looks pretty realistic, but then these two colorful, cartoony knights drop onto the table, and you kind of duke it out. You can jump on each other's legs and
leave the table and actually walk behind players.
Exactly.
Making use of the head turning.
Exactly.
People can pre-order DK2 today, but you're telling consumers not to buy it. So that tells me that this consumer version is going to be another step ahead.
Absolutely.
How far ahead in terms of researching hardware and working with suppliers do you have to be in terms of finding the right panels and the right technologies to put in the consumer version?
We're in a great spot for the consumer version. We're locking down the spec right now. We have a lot of improvements, like you've seen, that we want to make pretty much across the board. And we're going to get there very, very quickly.
And you guys will be ready to produce at scale?
That's a great question. We'll see. It depends on what the scale, sort of the interest is from the community. We probably won't start out producing 10 million or 100 million units. So we'll start with, some number of units for the consumer version. We'll talk about that more as we get there. And hopefully, consumers are excited as we are about the future of VR.
So we're at GDC, so we got to talk about games. You guys aren't announcing any games, but you're talking with developers. What's that process like right now? And even outside of games, in terms of multimedia experiences, you guys were at Sundance and South by Southwest?
Yeah, so we have a ton of developers creating really unique content for the Rift. We announced our publishing initiative. I think we talked about that a bit at GDC, or CES, with Eve Valkyrie. We are publishing a number of other made-for-VR experiences that we haven't announced yet. More news on that front pretty soon. There's also a number of developers doing really creative things outside the games industry, in film and music and things like that. At Sundance, we showed Chris Milk's Sound and Vision experience, which is a Beck concert. It's a 360 video experience where you're actually on stage with Beck.
And for that, audio is going to be really important. So how are you thinking about audio and integration with
Absolutely.
Oculus?
So he recorded that whole demo. It's all binaural audio, and it's this incredible. You close your eyes, and Beck is right here next to you, and you turn your head, and he just stays locked right there, and it's just an amazing experience.
To give people an idea of what that means, there's two microphones where your ears would be.
Yes.
So as you turn, as music plays around you, you get
it's
positional.
Spatialized as well, exactly, and it sounds exactly like it hits the human ear. So we are definitely researching audio. Audio is super critical for great virtual reality, and we definitely want to address that so that users have a great experience on the audio side. It really does fundamentally improve the experience.
Does that feel like something you have to control on your end, or is that something that you would want to be open to working with partners on?
We're open absolutely to working with partners on everything. Audio is still, the jury's still out on audio. Okay. We've been talking to a lot of great people out there. There's a ton of great audio companies. So it's just a matter of finding what's the right fit for VR and what's the right fit, for the Rift.
So it's Tuesday morning at GDC. Other announcements maybe haven't been made, but there's a lot of rumors that other people are interested in virtual reality spaces. If Sony, for example, announces virtual reality and is luring developers, how would you work with those developers to get their games on Oculus?
Hopefully working with them closely. I think we're excited about the potential of a Sony announcement. Like you're saying, if more developers are getting involved in VR and they're open to non-exclusive content, we would love for them to bring their experiences to the Rift, especially again around made for VR content. But at the end of the day, more users in the VR ecosystem, more people playing with VR, whether it's the Sony headset or the Oculus Rift or something else, as long as they're having a great time, they're like, wow, VR, finally works, it's here, it's great. That'll really help the whole sort of movement and industry together.
All right. Thank you so much, Nate, for chatting with us at GDC. Again, DK2 is available for pre-order now, $350, and you guys are hoping to ship in July.
Absolutely.
Will it be a first come, first serve?
Yes.
Okay, so if people want it, they'll have to pre-order now. But again, not for consumers.
Yes, consumers should wait. It really will be worth the wait. It's going to be, again, another major step forward.
Awesome. Thanks. And I'm Norm from GDC 2014 here with Oculus. Have more stuff on Tesla.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye. All right, so candid feedback time. What do we think?
It's really good. That's it.
It felt a lot like Crystal Cove.
This prototype felt a lot more put together. The Crystal Cove
Physically.
prototype, it was less of a prototype and more of a real thing, which makes sense since they're putting them on pre-order tomorrow. The outer shell both was not 3D printed anymore, so it felt a lot sturdier, and it's an IR translucent plastic, so it doesn't have all the light stuck on the outside.
What did you feel about the weight distribution?
It's still too heavy.
It's in the front heavy.
Yeah, it's front heavy. I almost think you might be better by putting a counterweight on the back. I'm sure they're smarter than we are on that stuff.
Yeah.
It has to be lighter for consumer. But Nate and the engineers we talked to all said they're aware of that and they're working on it.
My thinking is if they include audio system in it, the cupping of an audio system might bounce out. I don't like the top strap. I know that the top strap is necessary right now.
Yeah, I'm going to wear earbuds when I wear that thing.
In terms of the game, so they had that new Epic game, that new tech demo, which was a 2-player game. We didn't really explain it that well. We were both sitting down, and we weren't spatially in the same place.
We were spatially opposite where we were in the game, which was super weird because I was looking to the right and you were actually on my left.
But if we were actually had that couch arrangement, then the feeling of presence was very surreal.
Yeah, so I looked down. After I played that game for a little bit longer than you did, when I looked down and I moved my foot, I expected to see my foot move after maybe 2 minutes in the game, which is the first time I've gotten that.
And because in the virtual model of the game had the control of the gamepad, and you were moving your hands around and not seeing that physically represented, that was disorienting.
Well, but we were playing with 360 pads, so if we were using, say, DualShock 4s that have accelerometers, gyroscopes, and a light, then theoretically they could have done 4 degree of freedom movement tracking, so your arms would have moved in the game, and your legs still are going to be stationary.
So one thing we talked about when we saw it at CES was that AMOLED screen and being able to see that pentile matrix.
Yeah.
Nate confirmed it is an AMOLED pentile screen.
We knew that. You can tell that.
You can tell it.
They said it on Reddit.
If we look at the subpixels on that diamond arrangement, basically, I think still has very little bit of that screen door, so the delineation between the pixels.
Here's the thing about the screen door with the AMOLED, with the pentile. I'm actually not sure that pentile isn't better for them than a traditional square pixel arrangement, because the screen door is much less pronounced. You almost see it's almost like hexagon, like a hexagon grid rather than a square grid, and it's much less apparent. Part of it's that the resolution's greatly increased, but part of it is that there's not as many straight edges, so it's harder for your eye to pick up and harder for your brain to pick up.
And then also the brightness.
Yeah, the bright was really bright.
Really bright and colorful.
Yeah.
The optics changed a little bit in terms of the field of view. So for people who have only used DK1, they're going to be able to see more.
It's vertically and taller and a little bit wider.
Yeah.
The thing that I immediately noticed is that it feels like there's this bigger sweet spot going from DK1 to DK2 on the lenses. It could have just been the arrangement, but I had a much easier time finding where my eyes wanted to be to get everything in focus and everything looking great.
It's a really tough call because pre-orders are available when you watch this video,
don't pre-order it now.
Don't pre-order. It's very tempting to. It is first come, first serve, and I know in July when people are going to get their first pre-orders, you're going to want one. But they could not make it more clear that consumer version is going to be another step up.
Here's the thing to do. If you want one today, get 5 or 6 friends and pay $50 or $70 each. Share one, because you're not going to use it. It's not something you're ever like for right now, especially with the demos that are available. You're not going to play 3 days in a row. You're going to play for a couple hours, and then you're going to be totally fine and hand it off to your friend. Even better, get everybody to come over, set up the dev kit, run through a whole bunch of demos, try it out, and then take turns using it at home.
We'll be getting one.
We're getting one.
We're doing some stupid shit. Yeah. Yeah, we'll be first in line.
We'll be doing dumb stuff. Anyway, so that's it. Any further thoughts?
That's it. There might be a Sony announcement later today. If there is, we'll be talking about that on the podcast. Otherwise, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you guys next time.
It was a big jump from Crystal Cove, I thought. See you guys later.
Bye.